Welcome to the first real drive-through review. Not just a guy sitting in a living room and saying, I'm filming a drive-through review. Sorry, Joel, just kidding. It's more like things are so busy at home and traffic is so bad that I may as well film a review as I am driving to pick up my daughter at daycare. The game that I'm going to tell a little bit about today is Smash Up, a new game by AEG. This is a filler type of game. Actually, there is more to it than just a filler, especially because it may last a little longer than your regular filler, but still it is a very simple game, one that doesn't require thinking too hard, one that you can teach very easily to new players and even to non-gamers. There are facts that need to be taken into account, but they all come from the way in which the cards work, not from the rules per se. So, today we're gonna talk about that one. Let me show you how the game works and then we'll come back maybe to the car to drive through my conclusions. Smash Up, the shuffle building game of total awesomeness, and the subtitles and the cover introduce you to the humor and tongue-in-cheekness that are the core of the game, because the game really is about incredibly unlikely alliances that are going to fight against equally improbable groups of factions. You have the rulebook, which is not long and could be even shorter, I mean much shorter. This is really a simple game. Then you have the cards, you have a deck of base cards. These are shuffled together at the beginning of the game, and then you will turn up and put on the table a number of base cards equal to the number of players plus one. Suppose we have 3 players, then we use 4 bases, and we place the deck in the middle of the table, and then we have the factions, decks each representing a different groups. We have robots, wizards, aliens, pirates, zombies, dinosaurs, ninjas, and tricksters, leprechauns, gnomes, people like that. Each player chooses 2 decks and then shuffles them together to create a single deck. So you may have wizards with pirates, robots with dinosaurs. It can be any combination of these. During your turn, well, at the beginning of the game, you will get 5 cards in your hand, and during your turn, you can play a minion or an action. There are only 2 types of cards, minions and action. So you can play one or both in any order. Minions are always played to a base. When they are placed on the table, the effect of that minion is triggered, and then the minion stays there until the base is scored or until a game effect moves the minion to another base. Or you can play an action, and when you're playing an action, you simply perform the effect of the action, and the effects are pretty much self-explanatory. That's what you do in your turn. Play 1 or 2 cards. At the end of your turn, you draw 2 cards, and you see if it is time to score a base. Each minion has a number printed in the top left corner of the card that represents the power of the minion, and each base has an amount of total power that it takes to score that base. That means that when the total power contributed by the minions present at that base is 20 or more, the base is scored. When you score a base, you simply assign the highest amount of points to the player that has the majority of power, the highest amount of power, second number of points to second player and third player, if you have a third player. Bases also have powers and abilities that sometimes can be used during a turn before the base is scored, sometimes when the base is scored. As you can see, some bases may have a high amount of points for the second player rather than for the first player, so actually there will be tricky things happening there, well, ways in which you have to deal with that in order to be able to be the player with the second best score there. So the game is very simple, but pretty much what creates the flavor of the game, what gives the game its personality, is the interaction between the powers of the bases and the powers that each faction has. Each faction specializes in something specific. For example, the wizards have action-based abilities. They can use extra actions. The robots have minion-based abilities. They can bring in extra minions. They can chain off a minion after the other. The aliens can destroy cards, can be very violent, and also can return opponents' cards to the owner's hand, so that slows down the deployment of minions for the opponent. Pirates also can be destructive and can move around a lot, can move themselves and can move other players' minions. Zombies can come out of the discard pile, which makes it easier for them to bring in many minions in a fast way. Dinosaurs don't do much, but they are strong. They have they have large amounts of points, your power points, so they occupy a lot of space. They take a lot of space, and some are pretty hard to destroy. Ninjas are sneaky as they should be. They can be violent, they can destroy minions, and something really cool is that they can sneak into a base at the very last moment when the base is scored. So you're scoring a base thinking that you have a certain score, the ninja comes in at the last second, changes the score, now you're not getting nearly as many points as you thought you would. I like them a lot. And then the tricksters, they have a variety, an array of things that they can do to mess with other players' strategies. But clearly, what matters is what the factions can do, the different flavor that the factions have, and the way in which you can combine these factions together to create different types of team. And this is pretty much how the game works. You play your actions and minions. From time to time you score. When you score, you replace the scored base with a new one. You discard the cards that were there, and you continue playing like this until a player has reached 15 points. The first player to reach that amount of points is the winner. The game is fun. The game is indeed pretty fun. It is very simple. The rules are pretty much what I told you. I don't think I really neglected much. But at the same time, you do have to know a little bit how the factions work. Otherwise, you may play with your deck in a certain way at the beginning of the game and find yourself stuck later because you do not have cards that you expected for later. You run out of a certain type of cards. So even with new players, I would recommend, and especially with new players actually, that you show the cards to the new player, that the new player has a chance to look through all cards in his or her deck and get a sense of what the cards can do and how many cards of each type are available. I think it just makes things smoother, even though that also means that it may take a little longer to get started with the game, but that only happens the first time that a player is playing with a certain faction. Once the game starts, it is fairly fast-paced. Again, you may have times in which people are thinking their moves, but not overthinking. There isn't much to overthink overall. I like the game better with more than 2 players. I know other reviewers have said that before, and I agree with them. What can I say? I can't just say something I don't think, just to be original. Definitely. With more than 2 players, there is a better use of the bases. There is more interaction, of course, and I would say there is more chaos or more things that you cannot control just because players are throwing their cards on the table figuratively, but sometimes you do have the sense that when the game comes back to you, there are hordes of characters that you hadn't seen. There are minions that are popping out of nowhere. Your minions are not there anymore. They're not where you expected them to be, which in a game with more complexity, more depth, may be irritating, but here it's kind of like, it's kind of fun. It just ends up being kind of fun. You are both making your own plans to win the game, and you're just trying to limit the damage that is coming at your minions from all directions. And fun, pretty much, is the final verdict here. It is a game that is light and simple. It is humorous, which clearly is good. The art is really excellent, and I think it really contributes to create the humorous feel of having the aliens that are fighting against the pirates, supported by the wizards. And the powers are also fun because of the way in which they work. They create theme to a certain extent, and they're just a sort of like screw you factor that is there as you're messing with the other players' cards. But because of the humor, it doesn't get too confrontational. I cannot imagine somebody really getting mad, really acting as a sore loser because their pirates had been outnumbered by somebody else's zombies. If that happens, you may want to talk to the person one-to-one, maybe separately, see how you can handle that. Anger management classes are available all over the country. Point being that this is a fun game. Don't expect it to be more than it is, which is a filler type of game that actually takes longer to play than a filler. But it is fun. I think it has an excellent replay value because of all the combinations that you can create with the cards, different bases that may come to play in one game and not in the other. I'm sure there will be many expansions coming out that will improve the longevity of the game. But what we have so far is already a very nice starter set, out of which you can have a lot of interesting gaming going on. Light, fun, entertaining, humorous, and I personally have really nothing against that.